Okay, this was a panel session about unequal access to essential medicines for cancer in lower middle income countries. And I was actually telling the success story from HIV/AIDS. In the year 2000, we had many people with HIV that were in need of treatment. Drug companies had a treatment of $7,000 and we needed more affordable treatments, and it took us a long time before we could actually convince the drug companies that they should give away their monopolies and allow more affordable generic anti-AIDS medicines into Africa. And I would like to repeat that story. We wasted a little bit of 5 years in Africa before we achieved access to the generic affordable AIDS medicines. I think now with cancer, the new epidemic, I would like to do that faster and make sure we get access to all these good new innovative cancer medicines also in lower middle income countries. Now, first of all, the medicines are expensive because the drug companies, of course, do a lot of research. But even then, actually, I think they're actually asking a little bit too much. We see that in the high-income countries where they use a value-based pricing system, and that leads to a lot of high prices. There's also many cancer drugs coming to the market in my country, the Netherlands, and that's good. But we need to actually know if the additional benefit of those expensive cancer medicines is really a value for society. And we would rather see a fair medicine price or a price that society could afford. And in low middle income countries, this is even more dramatic. I mean, in low income countries, the products are actually not even registered. In middle income countries, they are sometimes registered, but at a price that is not really affordable. And that is basically the problem of access to the expensive cancer medicines. Okay, when pharmaceutical companies develop medicines, they actually have to adhere to the principles of human rights. And there is a business and human rights agreement worldwide from the United Nations that companies have to respect. So during the COVID pandemic, we were actually analyzing the development of new COVID vaccines using 19 different criteria that are in this human rights principles. And unfortunately, drug companies did not score very well on many of these items. We are now going to actually redo such an analysis, but now on the difference of access to essential cancer medicines in the high income, middle income and low income countries over the next 3 years. And yeah, we already know that access is dramatically different. So the objective of this is to actually ask companies whether they would like to respect those. There's a human right to access an essential medicine. Of course, drug companies have patents, and then they can ask what they want, but they should also respect that society must be able to afford this. And the prices are very high in the developing countries. Obviously, middle income countries and low income cannot actually afford that. So if then companies have a choice either to go for an access program like the ATOM program, or if that is even not possible, then maybe they should better give a license to the medicines patent pool, who can then actually interest generic companies to make it in restricted markets and under control of quality, and and the companies even get some royalties. This was a very successful project during HIV/AIDS, and it actually led to millions of people in the world now having access to AIDS medicines. I think cancer is now the next one that we should actually go for. Well, cancer is not a problem only of high-income countries. In fact, there are already more people dying in low middle-income countries of cancer than in the high-income countries. And people have a human right wherever they are And this, of course, the duty of care is for the governments to provide that care, but they need support from pharmaceutical companies to actually make the products available. That is done through registration first, and then by offering them for a price that the countries can afford. And yeah, people have human rights, and it is unacceptable in my view that companies just let people die in millions, whereas they have effective products that could actually help these patients. Now, I'm not saying it's very easy to treat cancer. There are many complexities, but definitely the first step for the drug companies is to register the product, make them available for a fair price, and then license them to the patent pool so that generic companies can produce them more affordably. Well, first of all, a country needs to make a national cancer plan, a policy. So that's political will. They need to put cancer as a kind of priority in the country. And we see hopeful signs that countries are doing that. Governments, of course, need budgets for that. So that's a problem. They also need to have identified which medicines they would like to have in their country cancer programs. That they do by issuing an essential medicines list, and guided by World Health Organization, which already has 83 cancer medicines on the global essential medicines list. If the product is on the national medicines list of a country, it means there is a political will for actually making that available, and that should then be done in an affordable and consistent manner. Now, apart from medicines, you also need, of course, diagnostics. You need trained healthcare professionals. You need academic cancer centers for referrals. We need to do long-term follow-up to patients. So it's more difficult than during HIV/AIDS, that I'm aware of. But it's doable. In many middle-income countries already, there are successful cancer programs. Well, in the past, the drug companies had successful medicines that are really effective, like imatinib. And I know that in some countries, the prices were so high that governments or patients could not afford them. Now, it is so that governments can, in the interest of public health, can actually put the public health interest higher than the business interest of a company. That means actually that governments have the power under the national laws and international agreements to actually take away the patent if they are actually a block for access to public health. And several countries have done so in the past. I think Thailand has done a very important one on the imatinib, and that made actually it possible for generic companies to actually make the product. And actually the product itself is not that costly to make, but so that actually dramatically increased the access to that product for CML, chronic myeloid leukemia. Yeah. Well, I'm talking also to the pharmaceutical companies here. I think you have very valuable products. They are on the WHO Essential Medicines list. That means you can't just sit still and sell them only in the high-income countries. Do register them in the low and middle-income countries. Then actually make them available at a fair price. If your price is not possible, then try an access program like Atom. And if that is not working, then I think the only and the best way to do it then is to provide a license to the patent pool, medicines patent pool, and then generic companies can start competing, and you also get still royalties for that. So it's a win-win for everybody. We have one company that actually was the first one to put a license in the patent pool, Novartis, with nilotinib. So I would say to all the other companies, follow the good example by Novartis.